All right, let's dive right in. In late 2025, two massive things happened in India, just days apart. Now, on the surface, they look like two totally different stories, but they're not. Together, they tell this one incredible story about stability, confidence, and really, the future of tech. Let's break it down.
So let me ask you this. If you had to pick just one headline from that time, one single story that really defined what was happening in the economy, what would you pick? A huge company going public? A new government policy, maybe? Well, here's the twist. It wasn't just one story. The real answer is actually how two completely separate, powerful forces came together in the same week, and what they created together was so much bigger than either one on its own.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the foundation that India's central bank laid. Then we'll get into the massive investment that lit the fuse. After that, we'll see why the whole system was ready for this moment. And then we'll tie it all together in this really powerful feedback loop. First things first, let's talk about that foundation. You know, this whole story, it doesn't start in some flashy tech office. It starts with a really bold, really smart decision by the Reserve Bank of India.
Okay, now the timing here, you really have to pay attention to this, because it's everything. On December 5th, the RBI cuts its main interest rate. This is just 4 days before Microsoft drops its bombshell announcement. And, maybe even more important, it was right before the US Fed was expected to do the very same thing. This wasn't a reaction. This was them getting ahead of the game.
But what's really fascinating here is why they did it. See, central banks usually cut rates when the economy's in trouble, right? Not this time. They made this move from a position of serious strength during what they called a rare Goldilocks period. And this chart right here, it just lays it all out, plain and simple. You've got GDP growing at a blistering 8.2%, while at the same time, inflation is super low, just 1.7%. That's the dream scenario. High growth, low inflation. It was the perfect moment to make a confident, strategic play.
So this move wasn't just a one-off. It was part of this new playbook, this new idea called the Liquidity-for-Resilience cycle. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like this. You fix your roof when the sun is shining. You don't wait for the hurricane to hit. They were using this period of strength to build a buffer for whatever comes next.
So how does it work in the real world? Well, it's pretty straightforward. The rate cut makes it cheaper to borrow money. That means lower payments for homes, for cars, for businesses. That, in turn, encourages companies to invest in real things, like new technology and factories, which makes the whole economy stronger and better able to handle shocks down the road. All right, let's get to our second pillar.
Okay, so the RBI has set the stage, right? The foundation is rock solid. Now it's time for the catalyst, the thing that takes all that stability and just pours gasoline on it. And here it is, $17.5 billion. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. Only 4 days after the RBI's move, Microsoft comes out and commits this unbelievable amount of money to India for the next 4 years. And just so we're clear, this isn't just another big investment. This is a historic bet. It's the single largest investment Microsoft has ever made in all of Asia. This wasn't just a business decision. It was a huge vote of confidence. And what I love about this is how smart the investment was. It wasn't just throwing money around. It was surgically targeted at 3 things that India really needed. First, the scale to build massive cloud infrastructure. Second, the skills to train millions of people to actually use all this new tech. And third, sovereignty, making sure the data stays in India, which builds trust. But here's what makes this a real game changer. This wasn't just for the big city tech hubs. A huge piece of this plan is about spreading AI to everyone, integrating it into national platforms to help over 310 million informal workers. We're talking about making sure the benefits of this tech revolution reach every corner of the country. So, we've got the stable foundation from the RBI, and we've got the massive catalytic investment from Microsoft. But you got to ask, right? Was the system, the financial ecosystem, actually ready for all of this? The data says absolutely yes. By this point in 2025, India had become the world's 3rd largest market for new stock listings, raising $19 billion. This wasn't a one-year fluke. It was a sign of a deep, mature market that was ready for the big leagues. And this slide is one of my favorites because it shows something really profound about the country's confidence in itself. At the same time that foreign investors were actually pulling money out, India's own domestic institutions, pension funds, mutual funds, they stepped up and bought in, big time. It showed the system had its own internal strength. Okay, it's time to bring it all home.
This is where the central bank's planning and the tech giant's huge bet all click into place to create something truly special. So what we're looking at is what's being called the validation acceleration feedback loop. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually super simple. The RBI's move from a position of strength was the validation. It was like a giant, credible stamp of approval saying, India is stable, India is a smart bet.
And Microsoft's historic investment? That was the direct result of that validation. That's the acceleration. They saw that green light, and they floored it. So you see how it works? The stability created the confidence for the investment, and the investment is now going to accelerate the growth. It's a beautiful, self-reinforcing cycle.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The whole story really boils down to this. India's biggest strength is shifting. It's moving beyond just having potential and into a new phase where its core advantage is its proven ability to actually execute on these huge strategic plans.
And that really leaves us with one big, important question for the future. As we look ahead, is this now-found ability to pair stability with execution, is that going to become India's single most powerful competitive advantage in the global economy?
Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. What do you think? Was this the moment everything changed for India's economy? I'd love to hear your take in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.